Hello, welcome back to Marathon Man, where I'm going through Doctor Who from the very beginning, and you join me at what I think is Season 7's Underdog. I say underdog because, well, I don't know, Spearhead from Space kicks off a brand new era, and Doctor Who and the Silurians and Inferno are sort of like held aloft as Third Doctor classics, which means, as a result, the Ambassadors of Death can sometimes feel a little bit hidden away. Every single time I do a marathon, I have some like insane notions, and one of them, which is also true this time, is that every time I finish the War Games, I seriously consider watching the rest of it in black and white. See, I find that the black and white era has such atmosphere to it, helped by it being black and white, that I kind of feel like I want to watch the rest of the show that way. And I sometimes try and justify it to myself that it would offer some consistency to like the whole thing. And as close as I get, and I did come really close this time, I always just talk myself out of it by saying, nah, that's a silly thing to do. What's this got to do with the Ambassadors of Death, Chris? Well, obviously, it wasn't always fully colorised. And previous marathons, like the first couple I did watch it not in full colour. And when I did that, like, it made the joins between Troughton's era and Pertwee's era feel less pronounced. It did offer a bit of consistency, and it ended up feeling quite comforting. And it was also a little bit appropriate as well, because the Ambassadors of Death, as well as being like the underdog of Season 7, I think feels, of Season 7, the one that's closest to Troughton's era. Perhaps it's because the show has settled down now and sort of like feels comfortable enough in its new paradigm to kick back, stroke over old memories and feel a little bit traditional. But I don't know what it is, I do get Season 6 vibes from this story. Spearhead from Space was such a shake-up that it couldn't feel anything other than new. And Doctor Who and the Silurians was telling a new type of story, as well as still having the novelty factor of the new regime. But the Ambassadors of Death, and I don't know, maybe it's the residual memories of the black and white talking, but it did feel like this could be a second Doctor and unit runaround. And I was surprised to find the same felt true this time for me, even though these days I do watch it fully colorised. The Ambassadors of Death might be the underdog of Season 7, but it is still loads of fun, even though it inevitably does run out of steam with 7 episodes to fill, falling more foul of that than the preceding story did. The mystery of the astronauts, even down to them not coming out once the capsule is back on Earth, is teasing in the best of ways. That they aren't responding, even though they are ostensibly back on Earth, is really chilling. And when they start communicating as if they are still in space, it's not out and out scary, but it is very disconcerting. And the thing is, that can be fantastically unsettling in Doctor Who, as is the case here. Then they repeat the same thing over and over again. Are you taking notes, Moffat? And it becomes spooky enough on which to hang the cliff.
Re-entry.
Right, cut it open.
I'm left with goosebumps. So then we're back to the execution of the thing, and it is glorious. Creepy astronauts, shady officials, suspicious soldiers, they all combine to make a really atmospheric piece. The mood is set really well and sustained quite adeptly throughout, even if the plot may not be able to stretch quite as far, despite some valiant efforts in terms of peppering incident throughout the thing. The action, for example the assault on the truck carrying the spacecraft in episode 2, though BBC TV circa 1969/70, is still pretty exciting for Doctor Who. And one of the strengths of this season is that the production team seem to be aware that due to the 20th century constraints applied to them, they cannot rely solely on cool ideas. Like, they've got to back them up. And where in the past a cool idea may have been enough to carry a story, here they realise they've actually got to put in more work than that. And they do. Sure, the signifiers for this story may be the creepy astronauts, but they're not on what the story hangs. Its defining features are actually far more complex. I came away from this story feeling like it is primarily about diplomacy, and the clear advantages of openness and honesty when communicating or negotiating. For example, as with the Silurians, once the Doctor is able to communicate with the aliens, he compassionately talks with them, sympathising with and apologising for the way they've been treated and the disappearance of their ambassadors. It is at this point where it becomes apparent that what looked like a sinister invasion may in fact just be one big misunderstanding. How utterly Doctor Who is that? Given material like this, Pertwee is excellent, and considering he's arguably remembered for being like the action Doctor, karate chopping and flipping enemies left, right and centre, he's actually the most caring of all of the Doctors so far. So like, brokering for peace between the humans and the Silurians in the previous story just goes to show how this Doctor thinks and feels. He doesn't see species in terms of good and bad, black and white, he sees the shades of grey. The Pertwee Doctor is so different from the previous two, and even if he might be the most caring one, he's still the most authoritative in a more overt way. He breezes in, interrogates a henchman with zero nonsense, and it's as if the Doctor is relishing having such a formidable appearance this time, and he will use it in a way the Troughton Doctor was unable to. That isn't to say this Doctor doesn't put on a front occasionally. His ruse at being like a batty old man whose car has broken down so he can block the convoy of the enemies is very nicely played. That said, even though he does still sometimes call upon that eccentric exterior displayed by his two predecessors, he very quickly does become the action Doctor that his reputation suggests. Because the thing is, despite this Doctor's kindness and this Doctor's compassion, he deals with villains like a boss. He's told that he should be dead, and he replies with a poker face.
And somebody disobeyed your instructions, didn't they?
He is the commanding presence wherever he goes and in whichever room he finds himself in. That he then channels this energy and presence into compassion, tolerance and understanding is what makes him such a hero. But it isn't just in the Doctor which the story promotes the value of diplomacy. When defeated, the villains give themselves up and insist that they were acting morally. Carrington truly believes he would be saving the world in doing what he was doing. When he's caught, he goes quietly. And it's an interesting way to end. It's even a quiet way to end. But that doesn't mean that it isn't a satisfying way to end. Here are those shades of grey creeping in. The maturity of the premise in the earlier Silurian story continuing apace throughout the season. The Doctor trading the ambassadors for the astronauts and finding a diplomatic solution is the perfect ending to this story. And that it feels like such a satisfying conclusion kind of like reinforces the point to me that this whole story has been about that, diplomacy. I really am liking this Doctor, and I am liking this direction. The scope of the show in terms of where and when it can go may have been drastically contracted, but it has resulted in an enhancement of focus in terms of crafting stories which ask questions. Time and space may not currently be explored in the programme, but ideas and themes are getting as much, if not more, exploration than they've ever had. After being somewhat shortchanged in the previous outing, Liz gets far more to do here. She's in like the melee of things. She has more agency. She even gets to have a car chase and an action scene. With Zoe, it felt like more care was being taken with companions again. And even though she may have had to sort of like sit various stretches of the last story out, the fact that Liz gets so much more to do here is, I think, again, a step in the right direction. When she's logged in with Lennox, she is fantastic. Having already attempted escape herself and unable to do a second time, she wheedles him into trying. She's a very strong character, and that's most evidenced in this story since her debut. She has a truly excellent attitude with the heavies, a sort of withering sarcasm again, which would later be adopted by heroes in big budget action movies, because she combines it with a very knowing wit about her appearance and how other people judge her. She's a character who comes almost like dripping in intelligence.
Don't try anything.
It's all right, I won't hurt you.
In my opinion, this story is this great character's best showing so far. We also have some rejigs to the titles, which I actually rather like. I think it works. It doesn't stick around, obviously. And then we also get a sting added to the cliffhanger, which definitely does stick around, and it's not hard to see why. It is an excellent choice. If the Ambassadors of Death is the underdog of Season 7, then I can only assume it's by default. It's a very distinctive season of Doctor Who, and I found a lot to enjoy in all of it so far. The new direction has opened up all manner of thematic possibilities, and the team in charge of making the show do seem to be seizing the opportunity. The expanse of the show may have become narrower, but really that's only narrowed its focus into a laser. and by doing this the small appears bigger and ideas can be explored far more thoroughly. And as a result, I really shouldn't have worried. We may now be fully in colour, but those shades of grey are going nowhere. I am now 271 episodes into the marathon, and while the serial I just watched may have absolutely bear no resemblance whatsoever to the very first one, Doctor Who is still finding ways to utterly grip me.
Don't try anything.
It's all right, I won't hurt you.
The magic with the film can do one. Like, that's just daft. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed musing on the merits of monochrome, then you know how YouTube works. Please do give it a like and share. And what are your thoughts on the Ambassadors of Death? Do you see it as the overlooked of Season 7? And if so, does it deserve to be? Or do you see it as the jewel in this season's crown? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you back here soon for already the final story in Season 7 and Liz Shaw's goodbye. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and I'll see you sideways in time.